Atlanta added more than 64,000 new residents in 1 year. That tells you something about where the city is headed. Today, I'm looking at 5 reasons Atlanta may be set up to do well over the next 5 years, and the last one is already changing where buyers want to live. The job market, the reason people keep choosing Atlanta. A strong job market is about whether those jobs are spread across different industries, and Atlanta is set up in a way that few southern markets can match. For example, you have logistics with Home Depot, UPS, and Delta Airlines. You also have healthcare and research with Emory, the CDC, and Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. You have tech, finance, Georgia Tech graduates who stay here, and fintech companies that choose Atlanta over more expensive cities. There's also film and television, with Georgia still one of the busiest production markets in the country. And then you have the corporate base of a major southeastern hub with Coca-Cola headquartered and regional offices that choose Atlanta because of where it sits. The Bureau of Labor Statistics puts the metro area at about 3.1 million non-farm jobs. But I would say the more important part is how those jobs are spread out. When a city depends on one industry, housing demand can become more fragile. Atlanta is not built that way. If one sector slows down, the others help keep demand steadier. That's important when you're looking at a market over the next 5 years, not just the next few months. And you can see that show up along the Beltline, which we'll cover in a bit. The neighborhoods that have grown fastest along the corridor reflect where this broad job base wants to live. But first, let me tell you something. Georgia Tech, Emory, and Georgia State bring in students, researchers, faculty, and companies that want to be close to that talent. Some of those people leave, but plenty of them stay, build careers here, and eventually buy here. That gives Atlanta a steady pipeline into the housing market that does not depend on one industry carrying the whole city. And once you understand the job base underneath Atlanta, the affordability piece starts to make more sense. Affordability, not cheap, but still a real value play. The case for Atlanta's affordability comes down to the comparison. And once you look at the numbers, the gap is hard to ignore. Atlanta is not a cheap city anymore, and I want to be clear about that. If you're coming from a smaller Georgia town, in-town prices can feel like a lot. But if you're coming from New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, or Washington, D.C., Atlanta reads differently. The broader Atlanta city market is sitting somewhere in the mid-400s, depending on whether you're looking at a typical home value or recent closed sales. Compare that with New York in the high 800s, Los Angeles pushing into the low 1 million and beyond, San Francisco in the 1.4 to 1.7 million range, and Washington, D.C. in the upper 600s. That gap changes what a buyer can do with the same career, the same income, and the same long-term plans. And when we get to weather and the Beltline, those quality of life pieces are part of why buyers from colder, more expensive cities look at Atlanta and feel like the math works. Now, buyers coming from higher cost markets do create price pressure here. I would be doing you a disservice if I skipped over that. But the gap between Atlanta and those coastal metros is still wide enough that Atlanta feels like a real destination, not a fallback choice. I don't think that closes fast. That value is also tied to where Atlanta sits on the map, and that's what makes this more durable than a short-term pricing advantage. If you're thinking about moving here, I work with people coming into the in-town Atlanta market every day. I can give you a street-level look at the neighborhoods, the price points, and which areas fit what you're looking for. Reach out today. All my contact info is in the description below. Back to the video. Southeast location, the middle of the map advantage. Atlanta gets chosen by companies because for a lot of business activity in the Southeast, it's the logical place to be. That's a different kind of advantage, and I think it matters when everything else feels less predictable. The city is the capital of Georgia. It's the center of the state government, all the region's business infrastructure, and it's the city that a lot of the Southeast uses as its reference point. So when companies are deciding where to place a regional office, build a distribution operation, or host a conference, Atlanta keeps showing up because the geography makes sense. The whole system of moving people and goods through the Southeast runs through here, and companies that need that regional reach do not have to create it from scratch. It's already here. For residents, that same location advantage shows up in daily life too. The mountains are a couple of hours north. The coast is a few hours east. Family can get to you, clients can get to you, and weekend trips don't require a complicated travel plan. And when we get to the Beltline, you'll see a smaller version of that same idea. The Beltline is doing for in-town neighborhoods what Atlanta's location has done for the broader region. So the region does not depend on and does not fall out of favor quickly. That's the kind of foundation that helps the housing market hold up when national conditions get uncomfortable. And there's one piece of infrastructure that makes all of this even stronger, and that's the airport. Airport access, the everyday superpower. Most people hear world's busiest airport and treat it like a fun fact. But after 28 years in this market, I would say Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport matters for a much bigger reason. It changes how people and companies use Atlanta every day. Hartsfield-Jackson was the busiest airport in the world for 2025 passenger traffic. It sits about 10 miles from downtown Atlanta, and with MARTA, you can get to the airport in about 20 minutes for a few dollars. You have more than 240 domestic and international destinations from there. So if you travel for work, family, or events, that changes how your week works. You're not always adding a connection, nor building your life around another hub city. You just get on the train, get to the airport, and go. The employer piece matters too, and I think buyers can underweight this. Companies can recruit more easily when their people can travel without a lot of friction. Regional offices choose Atlanta because that connectivity is already built in. The airport is infrastructure, and infrastructure is part of what helps a city grow steadily instead of having one good run and then leveling off. So when buyers ask me why Atlanta has a structural edge over places like Raleigh or Nashville, and those are strong markets too, the airport is part of my answer. Its air connectivity is in a different tier, and I don't think that will change in the next 5 years or maybe ever. And there's another thing buyers sometimes underestimate before they spend real time here, which is how much the climate shapes daily life. That's where we're going next. Weather. More usable months outside. I'm not going to oversell the weather here. Atlanta in July is hot. Just don't call it Hotlanta. And it's humid, and spring pollen is a part of life here. If you have allergies, March through May is something you need to plan around every year. But winter is a different conversation. With January highs often in the mid-50s, snow is rare here, and when we even get an inch, the city reacts like it's a major event. You don't have to deal with real winter. Fall is the season people who live here talk about. September through November is when Atlanta makes the strongest case for itself, and even in the summer, the evenings help. That's why you have patio dinners, weekend mornings in the park, and people walking the Beltline on a Sunday when the weather is better than it probably should be. Weather by itself does not move a housing market, and I would not tell a buyer that it does. But if you've spent years in a northern city where winter keeps you inside for months, and then you're looking at a career move to Atlanta, the outdoor season matters. It's not the whole decision, but I think it tilts the scale for a meaningful number of buyers. And when you walk the Beltline on a crisp October morning, you understand why. The Beltline, the long-term lifestyle bet. On a weekend morning in Old Fourth Ward, you'll see people walking dogs, grabbing coffee, and heading toward the farmer's market without getting in a car. In Inman Park, someone can bike over to meet a friend 2 neighborhoods away on a trail that used to be a railroad corridor. That's not some future vision of Atlanta. That's already happening, and it's getting more connected every year. The Atlanta Beltline is a planned 22-mile loop around the urban core using old rail corridors. It brings together trails, parks, public art, restaurants, retail, and eventually transit. About 3/4 of the loop is already built, and the full build-out is targeted for 2030. But I think the Beltline's importance over the next 5 years is not just the trail mileage. It's what the trail has done to the neighborhoods it touches. Old Fourth Ward, Inman Park, parts of Midtown, and Ponce Highland. Those areas feel different from how they did 10 years ago. The Beltline gave people a way to move through the city without getting in a car for every single thing. And that change in daily life has shown up in housing demand. Neighborhoods along the Loop are not just desirable. They're some of the most sought after addresses in the in-town market. I've watched that happen in real time over the years, and I don't think it's slowing down. That's the case for Atlanta over the next 5 years, and that's why this last reason is the one I wanted you to stay for. Atlanta is set up to thrive because 6 different advantages are all moving in the same direction at the same time. That kind of combination doesn't come together often, and it doesn't fall apart quickly. So if you're thinking about moving into the in-town Atlanta market and you want a clear read on which neighborhoods match what you're looking for, email me at hello@vcgrealty.com. Let's figure out what makes sense for your situation before you make that decision. And if you want to understand what is changing Atlanta right now, I linked a video that breaks down 7 major projects across the city. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.